What's up, everybody? I'm Paul Hickey with NoOffSeason.com, host of the Sports Card Strategy Show. Welcome to Lefty Cards right here on the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network, discussing the latest trends, best practices, and insider tips on sports card investing. This episode is brought to you by NoOffSeason.com, the number one place to make money flipping sports cards. Get a free 30-day trial today at NoOffSeason.com. And now, everybody, it's time for Lefty Cards.
Lefty Cards, episode 17. We're excited. We're back. It's me and Turner. We are in the saddle and ready to rock. As you guys can notice, I am also in a new building again. I'm in a new building again in a new building. So it's kind of like there's a lot going on. I am fully moved into our new house. This is the new place that we will be podcasting from, except for not everything is ready and set up like it normally is. But we're here. We're ready to party. We are locked in and excited for Turner and I to talk about the National. We are going to do a ton of card content this week. And so this will just be a little taste, a little precursor to what you'll get from the Sports Card Strategy Show network that's gone on at nooffseason.com. We are going to have a great week of card content. One of my favorite weeks of the year in terms of card investing and card collecting. Usually I come home from the National with cards that I did not expect to be able to play into. Usually I end up selling more cards than I expect as well. So always hoping for that, always hoping to come home with more money than you left with. But usually you come home with more cards than you left with rather than more money than you left with. But it's going to be a quick week. We're going to look up and realize that we are already back home on Saturday when Turner and I come back to Kentucky, and then we're going to realize we're going to have to unpack the National for a couple days. But Turner, how are you, bud? I've talked for 2.5 straight minutes without giving you an introduction to the show. So how are you, Turner?
I'm doing good. I don't have candy this time, so I'm not as good as last time, but I'm doing good over here. I'm excited. Yeah, no nerd clusters this time. So
the nerd clusters will be on the drive, though. We will have nerd clusters on the drive. I already picked up a bag, so you'll need to pick up a bag too, and we'll be sponsored by Nerds Clusters on our way to Cleveland. So if you want to follow us to Cleveland from Lexington, Kentucky, we will leave a Nerds Cluster trail every mile. We'll just drop one out the window, and hopefully you got your best hound dog out there to sniff out the one nerd candy every mile to follow us to Cleveland. So, man, I'm excited to roll out to Cleveland with you. Have you ever been to Cleveland?
I have not.
So you're going to see the home of LeBron James. How do you feel about that?
Going to be in the presence of greatness. Home of LeBron James and Stephen Curry. Because they were both born there.
Were they?
Yeah. They were born at the same hospital.
That's crazy. In Akron?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yes. I guess Bronny James might have been born there as well, right?
I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of movement in LeBron James's life, and you never know when that son came out. So, we're gonna TBD on the Bronny James to Cleveland, but what we do know is that Turner and I will be in Cleveland together, and we're gonna be heading out to Cleveland tomorrow afternoon. We will be there tomorrow night. Going to be with the great Paul Hickey. We're actually all going to be sharing a hotel room, so it's going to be nice and cozy, and we're going to see some of you guys out there. Joel Kaplan says, "What's up, guys?" Maybe we'll see guys like Joel out there, some of our fans, some of our family, some of our just people that we see once a year out there. I believe this will be my 5th National. So I've gone to 2 in, let's see, fourth. I've gone to 2 in Chicago, 1 in Atlantic City, and this will be my 4th one in Cleveland. it's always a fun environment to get to and just see a bunch of crazy things. Like, Turner, you will see probably more cards in the next 48 to 72 hours. You will see more cards than you maybe have ever seen in your life. And that's pretty overwhelming sometimes. You always see a bunch of random stuff at the National. One of my favorite things that I was able to do last year is I was able to see Derek Jeter. I had Derek Jeter was at the booth like 3 or 4 booths away from me, and that was pretty crazy. We ended up buying some Snoop Dogg cards last year. We ended up buying some Tupac cards last year. Just some crazy stuff. You're always at the National with people that you don't really know, and then you leave and you're like, how did I start life without these people in the card industry? So we'll definitely go and check out the Texas Roadshow and check out the Roadshow card stuff. We're gonna see our boys from Graybo's there. We're gonna see many of you that reached out to us. I know we're gonna see Farmer Joe and some other people. Mosaic Joe, and then also some. You know what? I just realized I don't know if Mosaic Joe and Farmer Joe are the same people. I think they're different.
I think no.
Well, anyway, regardless, we will definitely find out because we'll definitely be meeting him this year, and we're going to record some podcasts with Paul Hickey. An interner is officially doing some in-person intern work this year at the National. And Turner, I guess walk me through what your expectations are of that first day, and without us talking about it at all, what are your expectations of going in there?
Well, I'm expected to work, of course, and help you all out with the content and stuff, because that's the main priority of like what I'm going to the National for, is to help you all out and be an intern on the content side of things, and of course just like get a bunch of media and get a bunch of B-roll and stuff like that for just card stuff, cards galore, even seeing celebrities too. Like I one thing that I think is cool, and of course that Paul has seen him in person, is I think that Gary V, like being there, will be cool, because I've grown up watching his stuff a lot. I loved his yard sale videos, like whenever he did the garbage flipping or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
that was a big series that I used to watch, and other stuff. So I think that's an underrated thing, just like seeing people who I've seen on the screen before and get hundreds of thousands of views. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I think last year I walked by. It was one of the. So we were just like, you're going to see people at the National that you're going to look at and be like, how do I know them? Mm-hmm. It's going to kind of be one of those things. You're going to be seeing so many people that you don't know or that you shouldn't know. You're going to walk by people and be like, yeah, face, like just a bunch of people. Yeah. And then you'll see one of them out in the midst of everyone else, and they're going to look like a normal person, but you're going to look at them and be like, I know that face from somewhere. Yeah. So that happens every year. There's athletes that are there. There's people in the media that are there. There's, of course, Gary V. I was able to briefly meet him at the National with Paul. Greg Wilson will be there, of course. We'll see him, and then we're going to see several other card media people while we're there, and just chat with some people, interview some really cool people. So it'll be a lot of fun, and I'm excited for you to be able to meet Paul in person and be able to kind of grow this Sports Card Strategy Show network of family that we've got going on. So, all right, so we're going to talk just a couple of really basic questions today. At Turner it's all national centric. This whole week is going to be national centric. So we're going to be making moves prior to the National, and then towards the National, and then at the National, and then we're going to be talking about some of those things. So the content we create this week is going to be in connection with other people, connection with other businesses, connection with other entrepreneurs. But it's also us building our portfolio towards the fall. There's definitely going to be some big pushes towards the culture change after. There's a lot of movement of cards before the National, just in general. And then usually after the National, there's a lull in card movement broadly, because people are trying to empty their pockets a little bit to get a little more cash flow. or trying to empty their portfolios to get a little more cash flow so that they can empty their pockets at the National. So you're seeing a lot of deals right now, especially for cash transactions, so that people can kind of build their portfolios, and so they're willing to take offers right now. So we're going to talk about that briefly. And then we're going to be talking about buying strategies, and then a couple of cards that we're looking for on the floor. And they're a little bit different than some of the cards that we look for on eBay, because you're looking for cards that don't necessarily commonly get looked up in search engines, because comps may be a little bit difficult or a little bit hard to find. So let's go ahead and hit our first nooffseason.com commercial, and then we will come back to you by talking buying strategies at the National.
What's up, everyone? I'm Paul Hickey with nooffseason.com. Why should you subscribe to nooffseason.com's premium membership? Do you like the content on this show? Want more? Well, a free 30-day trial membership at nooffseason.com gives you a Friday edition of the Sports Card Strategy Show called The Overflow Show. It's a premium podcast for members only every Friday, and you can ask an unlimited amount of questions to build your sports card investment portfolio, and I answer them for you. I put in the work, research, and do the analysis, give you the best possible answer so you can increase your chances of making money flipping sports cards. And if that's not enough reason to sign up for a free 30-day trial today, you get Sports Card School, tons of premium members-only articles, and our new formula-based sports card rankings to help you find the cards with the best ROI to make money in the hobby. Sign up today at nooffseason.com.
Yeah, I'll definitely be using the formula when it comes to the nooffseason.com formula to look at raw to grade specifically, and then also grading to grading or different selling markers as well is a good play for the National. But I want to be able to have a strategy once I go in there. So one of your questions, we always talk about the Turner questions or the in-Turner questions when it comes to the Lefty Card Show. One of the questions that we've got today is, you said, hey, why don't we talk about buying strategy when it comes to what day you start pulling the trigger, or how much into the day you start pulling the trigger when it comes to buying cards at the National? I think this is a good question, Turner, because people are going to be buying and selling. I mean, the whole thing is buying and selling. It's a trade show basically around the idea of buying and selling. And what I think people don't realize is that there's probably actually less transactions than you expect going on, because there's a lot of stuff going on at the National. Like, there will be a lot of breaking. There will be a lot of people trying to start a new company, and so they're trying to get like eyeballs on their. You'll get a lot of free info stuff about different companies and things like that. People trying to just get in front of the most people that they can at the National, and there's going to be a lot of people that are coming to sell items as well. One thing that always impresses me about the National is there's people that you'll be able to see who they are just because of what they are holding, but there's always people that are buying, selling, and trading helmets, like football helmets. And what always is surprising to me is you'll see these guys have like these wagons, like big old huge wagons full of like big boxes, and it's all like these autographed helmets and things like that, because there's booths out at the National that are not only card related but are just collecting in general or investing in general related. And there's a lot of booths that are centered around old memorabilia in terms of helmets or signed gloves or baseball gloves or receiver gloves or anything like this, or like bats and things like that. There's all sorts of that kind of stuff too. So you'll see the people that are buying and selling those things because it's less inconspicuous, or it's less inconspicuous than our cards that we hold in like our little Pelican case or whatever. And these guys are like got wagons full of helmets that are coming around, and they probably only have 6 to 12 items, and we have 40 to 50 items, but they're 3x5s, so it's a little bit different. So but talking buying strategy at the show, it is a really fun environment to go in and watch. And I think my strategy has changed every year. So without my answer, what would be your strategy going into the show?
I'm trying not to just buy everything day one, basically. I think that a strategy that I want to do is, of course, this is such an interner answer, but I want to look at the dollar bin stuff like in the first like couple days before I like really look at like bigger cards with like the amount of money that I have, like bringing in, because with the dollar bin cards, like they're going to be hot in the first couple days because they're not going to be picked through, and you can find the best deals with that. And so then like as the days go on with the national, I feel like then I'll start looking at the cards that even that we're going to talk about today and stuff like that. Just because people get more desperate almost in a sense, like that they're not selling their cards by a couple of days, that they're going to want to make some deals, and so then there's going to be more wiggle room in the, like after a couple of days of the national.
Yeah, I think that's a decent strategy. Specifically, the dollar card bin. You're right. I mean, the more people that go through them, the more people that are going to be going through them. Like it's just but the tables will change really significantly, especially a company that has their prices really good, like rather than like really high on every comp or whatever. And you'll be able to tell that, like from day to day, you'll be able to tell who has good pricing on their items, because they'll have an inventory difference every day on their table. It won't be like the same cards that sit there for all 4 days. Like if you see one table that has really the same inventory Wednesday to Thursday, that's a good indicator of, in general, their cards either aren't desirable or they're priced too high. A lot of things at the national are going to be priced too high because people are expecting people to be coming in and trying to find something specifically they want. And so it's to the table's advantage to be above comps. So you're going to have to find a table that's really looking to move stuff at a regular pace. But there's going to be trade nights and things like that, and we're going to try to attend a couple of those. I know that the Cleveland Sports Cards it has a show or a trade night specifically soccer related, one of the nights, and so I think I'm going to try to head out to that and things like that. So it'll be fun. So Crimson TC says, "What's up?" in the chat. He's little eyeballs. He's definitely going to be there. They always have cards priced to move, so their inventory moves really regularly. I forget exactly what their stand is going to look like this year, but typically what I do on the buying strategy is I try to sell stuff the first couple of days. I try to be able to get out of a couple of things so that I have more liquid going into the show than I had at the start of it. I've been pretty fortunate, not only this year, but the past couple of years, to be able to sell a good amount of my cards right before the national so that I have enough capital going in. And I was able to put some bankroll back into my account this last couple of 2 weeks to be able to move a good decent amount of cash back into my bankroll so that I can move into a couple of cards. I'm going to probably do a trade up strategy on a couple of cards, but I think for me, it's not necessarily about finding the right time to pull the trigger or how many days or something like that. Like your question is valid, but I think for me, it's less about like when to pull the trigger and more to be able to pull the trigger on a price that you feel like is good. Because a lot of the cards that we specifically, and like especially somewhere in between, like, so we've talked about levels, right? We've talked about how there's like dollar levels, $100 levels, $500 level, $1,000 level, and beyond. The levels between like where you're at and where I'm at, all of our cards aren't low pop count for the most part. We're dealing with cards that are between 5 and 10,000 pop count, or maybe at the earliest like 499 refractor autos and stuff like that. So they're fairly obtainable. So we don't have to necessarily really haggle over one guy at the show who has one Mickey Mantle 52. Like we're not necessarily, like if we're looking for a Prism PSA 10 CJ Stroud or something like that, there's going to be thousands of those at the national, and so we're going to be able to just, rather than buying at the right day, buying at the right price is something. And I think that's essentially what you're asking, because I think essentially you're asking which day is the day where the prices are lowest, and the tables do get empty towards the end of the weekend. Usually that Thursday is kind of empty. Like some of the days, like towards the beginning part of the week, I look around, I'm like, wow, there's not a lot of people here like I expected. And then Saturday seems to be like the day that everybody comes into town. So usually I do a lot of buying on Thursdays. And then I do a lot of connecting on Fridays, and then Saturdays I just kind of am, running the show, trying to get my last little stuff done. And then, but this year is the first day I'm going to be a Wednesday person. So I don't know exactly. That'll be a little bit new for me, but I usually like to make some of my big purchases Thursday night or Friday morning. So that's just usually how it goes for me.
Well, there you go. I'll probably just be your shadow and do something like that. And of course, I want to be my own person, but at the same time, you've been in the game longer than me, so I'm definitely going to take your advice and run with it.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that we do is when we go to the table together, like we've got a couple of cards that we have preloaded in here of like cards that we're looking for at the National, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But I think one of the fun things about going to the National is you'll start looking at cards and you'll start seeing cards that you're just not normally able to see.
Mm-hmm.
Like last year I stumbled on a 2004 PSA 8 Messi card at Crim's table, and I was like, how much do you want for that? And I had a Jude Bellingham Color Blast PSA 10, and I was like, okay, I'm going to sit on this for a while. I think this is a card that I really want to move forward with. Jude Bellingham's going to be the guy, and da-da-da. And then, I saw this card, and I was like, Crim, would you trade me cash and this card for that Messi card? I really, and I wasn't expecting to come home with a 2004 Messi card, but like I did because it's the National. So there's always things like that I think I come home with cards that I'm not expecting. But the cards we are expecting are what we want to talk about next. And actually, the next thing we're going to go after is, are we bringing any cards to get out of, including in a bulk trade? That's a question that you're going to ask me, and I'll have the answer for right after this next commercial.
Kendall, are these people ready to start grading their sports cards? CGC Cards is the perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. From their crystal clear holders to their affordable pricing, CGC Cards is the perfect stop for your grading needs. Go to cgccards.com to start grading today.
You will see a lot of CGC cards out there. There's usually a lot of tables. CGC themselves will be there. We'll be hanging out with them a little bit and talking about some nooffseason.com type branding strategy stuff with CGC while we're there. And it'll be a good time to catch up with some of those people that are in our family at nooffseason.com. So one of the things that we are talking about is the question that we're jumping into right now is, are you bringing any cards to get out of and including in a bulk trade? I just talked about last year how I took several cards to the National that I was looking to get out of that I knew I had solid returns on. One of the cards that I wanted to, one of the cards that I wanted to get out of when I got there last year was I had a rookie ticket auto of Trevor Lawrence. I ended up buying it for $400 in December of last year, I guess 2 years ago. But the December before last year's National. There we go. So we were able to flip that into about $650, and we've talked about how that card was like somebody chewed on it. There's like a dog that chewed on it, and it still was able to sell for $250 more than I bought it for. But I went to the National expecting to move out of that card because it was a football card. And everybody at the National is looking for quarterbacks. So quarterbacks will be at a premium, and they'll be on people's tables. But I'm also going to be bringing cards this year that I am looking to do stuff with. And here's what I'm potentially going to do. I am really thinking about, and I've been talking about this off podcast with I've been talking with, sorry, I just got a text message that kind of distracted me. I've been talking with Paul offline about this kind of stuff, but I am really interested in potentially adding all of my bulk slabs, like not the Kobe Mayo autos and Basalo autos and things like this that I know I can move to, in person or potentially in Facebook deals or something. I mean, I'm talking like all of my other bulk stuff that I have had for a long time that I'm waiting on prospects to potentially get up to the majors. Like if I have PSA 10s of chromes and stuff like that, less autos and more just the regular stuff. I'm thinking about taking all of that and putting it in a PSA vault. That way, now that they're partnered with eBay, I can just send everything that I have to a vault. Therefore, I don't have to have it here. And the convenience of just being able to say, okay, sell at earliest convenience to PSA, like I don't have to necessarily ship or do anything like that. Like if I have Spencer Jones, for instance, I have a lot of PSA 10 chromes of Spencer Jones. Or sorry, not Spencer Jones. That was last year. Lazaro Montez. I have a lot of PSA 10s of Lazaro Montez. He has not been even sniffing a call up yet. So I'm just basically sitting on a lot of these bulk cards at my house, and they're kind of filling the rack over here. It's getting kind of ridiculous. So if I have all of those cards that are shipping off to PSA or to potentially be able to sell there, I can vault them and then immediately list them on eBay with PSA's new listing system straight to eBay. And they take care of all that. So it takes the convenient fee. Like there will be a convenience fee, but it takes like the mindlessness out of it for me, where I can just click a button and I'll essentially get paid for it. So I'm thinking about doing all that. I'm probably going to make that call within the next 12 to 15 hours, obviously, because we're getting to where I really need to make that call or not. But so I am including those cards in what I'm bringing to the National, because I'll probably try to figure out what that looks like in terms of if they have deals at the National and how I can do that. But I'm thinking about vaulting a good number of my cards to PSA at the National. I also am thinking about moving out of 99 Kobe Mayo Sapphire Auto PSA 10 that I have. This card is way up from when I bought it. I mean, like almost double of what I bought it from. I know I can get good value for it, and I know I can pair it with another card to potentially get into something a lot bigger, a lot larger. So I'm thinking about doing that. I'm also going to be taking several of my Carlos Alcaraz cards with me as well. He just won Wimbledon, and he's about to be playing in the Olympics with Nadal as they do doubles. I think his value could skyrocket over the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, Skubal, which is a Detroit Tigers pitcher, is probably going to get traded over the time that we are there. The baseball trade deadline is going to be really close to the time that we are at the National. So if Skubal is traded to somebody like the Orioles, Basalo or Jackson Holiday or Kobe Mayo or some of those guys could potentially be going over in a really huge trade to the Tigers. The Orioles have seen a lot of interest there, and so I do want to have some of those guys with me at the National in case they do get traded at the National. That happened 2 years ago, where there was a big trade that happened while I was at the National, and the cards that I needed to sell were back home in Kentucky, and I did not have them in Chicago. So that was a big bummer at the time. But yeah, that's what we're rolling with there. Any cards that you are looking to get out of or include in a bulk trade?
I actually had a question for you, like
Cool.
a follow-up question. So I've got, like, for example, I have 3 Prism PSA 10 Arch Mannings.
The ones that we had together.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, say for example, with a card like that, do you think that I should bring those and try to trade up to get like a bigger Arch Manning card, like such as like an autographed one?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would do that if I were you. Bring 3 and negotiate into trying to trade into 1. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah, Arch Manning will definitely be movable at the National. It's just going to be you're going to have to find a person who buys college football cards.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and another question that I have is with because like you, I'm starting to expand my PSA like collection with a lot of the prospects. I have the Mojos. I have the base chrome and stuff like that of certain guys like Roman Anthony, Xavier Isaac, stuff like that. Do you think that I should bring those to possibly trade into autographed Bowman Chrome cards?
One thing every year at the National that I'm a little upset by is how there's not as many prospect stuff baseball wise at the National as I want there to be. Like last year, I was trying really hard to find some Jackson Holiday, and nobody had it because everybody was holding on to it. Nobody was selling. So what you'll see at the National is you'll see a lot of what the main stuff that's moving right now is. So you'll see a bunch of Shohei probably. You'll see a bunch of who's another guy that's moving, like a lot of football right now. You'll see a lot of guys. You'll see a lot of Tatum, I would assume. A lot of Celtics stuff. You'll see a lot of Olympic basketball thing. Like people are smart. They know that people are coming to the table to buy things that are in season. And for those of us that are smart, we're trying to buy things that are at our deals. People are not trying to sell you a card that they're losing money on right now. Yeah. So for the most part, the people are at the National, their booths are really smart. Now you'll find some booths that are just buying and selling anything all the time. And that's kind of where you need to like really kind of pick yourself out, but there's people that have basically brought all of their things to the National to sell exactly what they want you to buy. And then Krim actually just said, if you can't move them in one trade, I'll buy them. So there you go. Yes, I would bring those, the Arch Mannings with you, as I'm assuming what he's talking about. But yeah, I think finding a good trade is a possibility, but I think the Chrome 10s specifically, the thing you really want, the play for those really are using those to sell when the call up happens. Yeah. Now, because a lot of tables won't see much margin in those, because if they buy them from you for $30 and they sell for $50, that's really only $20 that they're essentially holding a card for. So space is really limited on a table, so you've got to be able to see a bunch of return or fast return on a table. So I wouldn't bring the Chrome 10s and stuff like that unless it's a guy that could potentially get called up in the next couple of days. For instance, Roman Anthony and Xavier Isaac, both are going to have a long runway, so I would keep those for the call-up at the house. Now, you also never know what could happen. You could end up like me where there's a guy that gets traded or moved and you're sitting at home. Your cards are sitting at home while you're in Cleveland, and you don't end up having it. So, but I would be curious, Krim, if you're still listening, type in the chat what you would recommend on that kind of thing. But in my opinion, those cards at the National, you're not going to get good value for, and you're just going to end up coming back home with them. Yeah. Now, it could be different at a trade night. If we do end up going to trade night or something like that, they could be valuable for something like that. But from table transactions, no, I think that you're not going to get the value that you want for them.
Yeah, I'm not like trying to sell them. It's just like I'm kind of like the thought process of like how you've talked about before, trying to just ship one card compared to like 5. Yeah, just like saving the like shipping costs and stuff like that, and more profit margins are there with an autographed like first compared to 5 base, for example. Yeah. So that is my thought process with that.
No, I think your thought process is correct there, and I think, or well, maybe not correct because there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, obviously, but yeah. I think that's what I would do is be able to get into less cards, so that you have less bulk and more attention to focus on a few cards rather than, hundreds of Chrome 10s. You've got 10 autographs, so that's what I would do. That's the strategy that I took about 2 years ago, where I stopped buying bulk Chrome 10s and started trying to purchase autos instead. Yeah. But it's all making green, right? Everything is making money, and that's how you've done your strategy. So like, don't change your strategy based on what I do just because it's what I do. Find what's working for you. And I think that's what we're about. Like I'm about like uplifting your strategy and making like you and everyone else that's listening on the Sports Card Network, a smarter investor in sports cards. But at the same time, like, you've got to be a self feeder as well. And my strategy works for me, but also Krim's strategy works for him, and you know, Paul's strategy works for him, and Turner's strategy works for him. So eventually, we're going to get to a point where we're bouncing ideas off of each other just to see what we would do, but also knowing that we're confident in our own strategies, and I think you're confident in what you do. So.
Oh yeah.
So okay, let's go ahead and jump to the next commercial, and then we're going to come back with what cards we are looking for at the National.
Yo, Lefty, we use a lot of data, don't we? Well, I just want everyone to know that they can get the same data we get by signing up at marketmoversapp.com. Sign up at marketmoversapp.com today, but use the promo code NOOFFSEASON to save 20% after a free 14-day trial. That's marketmoversapp.com, promo code NOOFFSEASON.
All right, so we are going to look at a couple of cards that we are looking to acquire at the National. So one of the first things that Turner is looking for, Turner sent me his list, so I'm reading off his list right now. Turner is looking for a Prism Silver, Bryce Young, PSA 10. I think we have kind of danced around this card and talking about this card for a while because of how we have seen it dip low. So we are now seeing a almost 30-day low for this card, as it's coming in right at a $203 value for a PSA 10 of this card. And over the last 90 days, it's down 1.5%. So it's really at a holding pattern of what we are talking about with this card specifically. We have been able to see how we are looking at Bryce Young, and we are seeing how his value is not rising yet. And it won't take much, we believe, for Bryce Young's PSA 10 silver to rise from this $200 value. They've added weapons. We've talked about him a lot over the last couple of weeks, in which, because of good merit, this guy was a number 1 draft pick in the NFL draft. And look, this card previously has sold for $455, $390, $310, and then a most recent high of $244. So if you're getting a $45 return on something that you have a $200 investment in, that's not bad. That's pretty good percentage gain when you can turn it in less than 3 months. There is 1,069 of these, so the likelihood of you being able to find one for around $200 is fairly good. I bet we could see these at the National with a price tag on them around $230, $240. So you're going to have to be pretty smart about when you get in on this card. But a $203 value or cheaper than that at the National would be something that I would be extremely in favor of you potentially finding at the National. How much bankroll are you potentially looking to take into the National with you?
Probably about double that, probably around like $350, $400, and then I'll bring those 3 Arch Manning cards.
Yeah, so you're not only coming with $300-$400, but you're also coming with some trades that you're going to be looking to move out of. That's smart. I'm taking around 1,000 with me, and definitely with cards that I'm willing to move on as well. I think another thing that I'm always aware of is I hate carrying around my huge case all day at the National. So, I might get a little crafty with how I hold my cards this year, because the Pelican case is just not exactly what I want to do. But the Prism Silver Bryce Young is definitely going to be obtainable for you. And so I think that's definitely a card that I would be encouraging you and going to be walking them alongside you to be like, yes, let's find this one. So Prism 10 Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, this is a card that I can get excited about. The PSA 10 of this is selling for $91. And as you can see on this chart, there is a ton of sales of this card. The Thunder are going to be even better this year. They are going to be even more for real. They ended up improving on some of their weaknesses and signing big role players back. They get Alex Caruso, who's going to be an absolute problem on defense for the other team. We've got a great guy coming off the bench that can also spray it from three, and honestly, a vast improvement in my mind to the Josh Giddey roster position for the Thunder. But Shea is only going to get more and more valuable. I think he's going to step more and more into superstarness when it comes to this year in the NBA. As long as he doesn't put out any more horrific commercials with Chet Holmgren, I believe that his value is going to continue to rise. And one thing that you're seeing on this chart here, if we look at the past 365 days, you see a ton of transactions here, and then there's a lull. Like the same thing you see in 2023, a ton of transactions around December, Christmas, and January, and then there's a lull and it goes down. And then you have a ton of transactions, and then there's a lull and it comes down. We're seeing the lull and the come down right here. So if it's anything historically about what it's going to be, we're about to see a ton of transactions happen with this card, which is always good for when you want to buy into this card. As of most recently, even this month, this card has sold for $78. This card is sold for $78. It's currently comping at what is it, 90, 91? But the odds are that you can find this card pretty obtainable between $85, $90. And I'm sure that you would be able to get into something like this when the comps recently have been around 70. I know there's going to be people that will be able to move this card. I know you can be able to find it easily around the $115 range, but I know that you can be really smart and try to get it down to comps at $91 or potentially under that because of the popularity of this card with a pop count of 4,273 for this PSA 10. It is definitely an obtainable card for you to find. The rarity aspect is not there as the silver Bryce Young, but this is going to be a card that is going to be liquid and fluid. When you are able to move out of it, it's going to be a card that can sell quickly. So I like the thought process on this one. And then we're going to jump to the next one. This is something that is maybe one of your most controversial buys because of just who it is, but it's not a controversial buy if you're just looking at sheer athleticism. So you're looking at a 2019 Prism-based Ja Morant PSA 10. Look at this chart over the last 365 days. This has been kind of all over the place. You're seeing prices at $80 to $90, but this card is averaging trading at $51 currently and has gone as low as about $28 at $30 at times. So this card is wildly flip tradable. So it seems like people don't believe in Ja Morant. They don't believe in him. They don't believe in him. They don't believe in him. And then he pops off and does something crazy. And then people believe in him again. And then and then people don't believe in him again. And so what you would have to, the strategy for this card is there is a ton of them. There is 22,000 PSA 10s of this card, which is good for the fact that it can be liquid, but bad in the fact of like there's definitely other people that you're going to have to be competing for to sell this card. It's going to be liquid and fluid, but it's also going to be a card that, if you have yours posted for 55, there's going to be someone out there posting it for 54. And at that point, it's kind of a race to the bottom. So it is going to be liquid, but you're always going to be competing against somebody else who probably has better margins than you. So I would say it's the out of these four that you give me, we haven't talked about your fourth one yet, but it is my least favorite or least recommended card to get in at the National unless you can find an incredible deal. But this is the kind of card that if you're doing a larger deal, say that you're doing a Prism Silver Bryce Young PSA 10 deal and the guy won't come down off of like 240. Like say he's like, I'm at 240 and you're trying to get into the Bryce Young at 200, right? Mm-hmm. There's a large variance. One of Krim's strategies that he likes to do is kind of look back at the table and try to add some more cards to the deal. And although make the deal a little more expensive, you can create better margin in other places. So for instance, if he's at like 240, you can look at the table and be like, okay, he's got this Ja Morant card for, $60 out there. and you can be like, hey, okay, what about this? Would you do 260? So you're adding $20 on the other card's value, and you throw in both cards. That way, he can probably get better margin out of a card somewhere else, and you can find better margin on your card as well. So that's another strategy. This could be a card that you end up throwing into another deal that you're doing at the table, and maybe throw in a John Morant 2019 Prism card into a larger deal, and that could be a cool strategy for you to use at the National as well.
Hey, before you do the fourth one, I was just thinking about John Morant. Could you look up his Donruss Optic Hollow from the rookie year? Like his rookie year, so 2019-20?
Let's see. Donruss Optic Hollow Ja Morant. All right. All right. So 2019, 2020, Ja Morant. All right. This card is not wanting to play nice.
Okay.
Optic. Is it this one?
Then a PSA 10. Because that's a BGS 9.5.
Yeah, let's try just like this, see if that works.
No, that's his second year. If it's too difficult, we can.
Oh, here it is. Okay, we found it. We found it. All right, so the PSA 10 Optic Hollow.
Yeah, and the PSA right. 10 with that, because I think that was the raw one.
Yeah. This is just how I end up.
There we go. There we go.
All right, that's not working. Here we go. $215. So this card is worth $215. Definitely took a massive rise over the last couple of months, but in May this card was trading for $174 over the last 90 days. Let's see where it's at. So it's actually up. It's actually up 32% in the last 90 days. So people are believing in the Grizzlies, man, which is something that I probably do believe in the Grizzlies right now. I think they are going to be a little bit better than they are, adding some good pieces. I'm not a believer in Zach Edey, but I am a believer in the Grizzlies. Let's just put it that way. So I do think Ja Morant is going to be pretty good this year, and so I don't dog you for wanting to get into this guy now. But definitely look at and trying to get in and out of a Ja Morant card, but maybe just not the Prism PSA 10 because of the pop count, because you're just kind of arguing for a sellable price at that point. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to this next one. We're going to do PSA 10 Jalen Hurts. So love that play already, and we're going for the Optic Hollow. All right, Optic Hollow PSA 10 also coming in around $218. So just right off the bat, that seems like a strategy that you're trying to get into around a $200 card.
Yeah.
Would that be the base level of the most expensive card you've ever bought?
Yeah.
What is the most expensive card you've ever bought so far?
I think we talked about it on a previous show. Whenever I had the World Cup Mbappe card.
Oh, yes. And you ended up spending like $260, $270 or something like that?
No, it was $225.
Okay.
That's what I saw for.
Speaking of that card, what did you do with that? Did you keep it?
I sold it.
When did you sell it?
Right whenever he announced that he was transferring clubs.
What'd you end up getting for it?
I think I want to say $140.
Okay, so you did end up taking about $100 loss on there, but you were able to get capital back.
Right.
How do you feel about that now that it's like post-transaction?
Well, to be honest with you, I got part of it as Christmas money, so I wasn't fully into it. So it wasn't like a huge thing because it was 2 years ago now. So at
Yeah.
that point, it was just like, let's get my money and keep going.
Yep. And that's the strat, man. Just keep going, get your liquidity back so that you can put it in new cards, so that you can get into a new card. So let's talk about this Jalen Hurts card. It's at $218. Again, this is the Jalen Hurts 2020 Optic Hollow PSA 10 of this card. It is a $218 value. This card looks positioned pretty well for a good buy right now. This is pretty much the exact same chart work that we've seen from the Bryce Young, but this card is really at a good buying position again. Like, you could have bought into this card 60 days ago and had the same price, but then we also see how it hyped itself about a month ago. So it's now come back down a little bit, and we will see this card go back up. I think this is a good card to potentially get in on it, especially if we let's look at the last 365 days. Let's see, we're at July of last year. And so this card over the period of time, when you look at September of last year from a July aspect, this card went up from let's see, this card went from 350 to 420 in 3 months. So if you're putting that kind of increase here as well, then that is definitely that's definitely a good play in my opinion. So I think out of your plays that you've got here, you've got the Bryce Young silver, you've got the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander at a lower price point, and then you've got the Jalen Hurts at the higher price point, around that $200 price point, and then you've got the John Morant back down a little bit lower than the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. So you've got three levels of cards there that you could be moving into potentially at the National. I'll be looking forward to how we do a follow-up episode on this to see which cards you actually pulled trigger on, and figuring out how to potentially make a big run in the future. So let's jump to our last commercial of the night, and then I'll talk about some cards that I want to move into.
Lefty, we say that breaking is not necessarily a sports card strategy, but there's a lot of great things going on Whatnot other than breaking. They now have singles auctions and an improved overall experience on their platform. I want everyone to know that they can get $15 free on Whatnot by joining Whatnot through this URL. Go to whatnot.sportscardstrategy.com. That's whatnot.sportscardstrategy.com. Lefty, back to you.
All right. So I think a guy that I'm really looking forward to is a lot of the same premise of what we've done previously, but I'm looking at taking a massive look at Jalen Williams cards. So Jalen Williams, similar to the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander chart, is going to see a lot of rise from the Thunder, just getting a lot more media attention this year. Plus, his market has come a lot further down than Shea over the last couple of months because of the, he's not the favorable player on the team, but he still will get the rise of that team doing well. This card was 90 days ago, within 90 days ago, selling for $250. I believe I sold mine at around $200, and I bought into it about $130 or $140. Let's see. I think I bought it around $130 or $140. Something like that. Yeah, I bought into like $150, $140 range, and then I ended up selling for $200. So if I could get back in at this $150 range, right now it's selling for $147. I think it's really easy to go back to this $250, $260 range pretty attainably over the next 6 months. So I'm looking at moving back into Jalen Williams, silver PSA 10, or just a Jalen Williams autograph potentially. He's got some pretty sick rookie patch autos. So Jalen Williams is a guy that I'm looking for to potentially move into at the National. I'm always looking at Gretzky cards. I know this is kind of different for me, but for at the National, Gretzky cards are something that I always am particularly drawn to. His O-Pee-Chee, specifically, rookie O-Pee-Chee is the card that I like the most, just because of what it is. Let's see, it's his 79, I believe. 1979. His O-Pee-Chee cards. Yeah, so 79 PSA 6 of this card is going for 1.8K. That's probably a little bit higher than I can go. I've almost pulled trigger on a PSA 5 of this card about 5 times in my history of a portfolio. If I can find a good deal on a PSA 5 Wayne Gretzky O-Pee-Chee, that is probably what I am going to be heading for, and potentially I don't expect myself to be able to get into this card, but if it happens, I could see myself pulling the trigger on this kind of a card. Plus, I might be able to trade out of my Pulisic
Kaboom.
PSA Kaboom, because his market didn't exactly do what I thought it would this summer because of the way that the American team struggled. But I could see myself moving out of that Pulisic and into another big card to potentially try to see a rise there. So that was what I'm currently looking for. And I'm also looking for a lot of the quarterbacks that you're looking for. I'm interested in particular at Deshaun Watson because I'm a Browns fan, and I think that a lot of people have overlooked him. I'm a little bit afraid
bold.
What'd you say?
I said that's bold.
It is bold. And Krim said, I have a friend that has a ton of J-Dub's autos. That's good to know. So maybe I could jump into a J-Dub auto when it comes to at the National. And he also said, I would bring anything that you have room to bring. So maybe don't listen to me and just bring anything that you can turn. So, and then I also am potentially looking at different prospects and players that I like there. I think taking a stab at some Vladdy Jr. while we're out there, I think he could get traded after the National. So I might look into potentially finding a good deal on him. I've talked about him a couple of weeks ago, but I think that might be something that I look forward to. So
I have 2 guys that I want to ask you about that are more hyped up guys.
let's hear it.
So first one, he's on the screen, Wemby.
Yep.
Do you think that with him playing in the Olympics right now, and then even having like Chris Paul as a teammate along with guys developing alongside him, do you think there's a potential where like there's a good buy-in right now?
I don't know. His pop count is ridiculous right now. Like if this particular Wembanyama card, I know I took it off the screen at this point, but the Wembanyama PSA 10 is already at 14,000 cards. Like that's pretty high, and I know that some of those are going to end up being fake and some other things. So this card is around $119. It was around $100 a couple of weeks ago. I think it could get around 150. Now, I would go for maybe a little bit rarer of a card than the Prism, in my opinion. Maybe jump to a just like a different colored parallel, not a silver, because that's going to be way expensive. But if you move to like a red, white, and blue, maybe. Let's see what the red, white, and blue is going for. The raws of this red, white, and blue are selling for around 150. That's really not that bad. I could see myself moving into something like that, potentially maybe a different parallel of a Prism of this Wembanyama card, or a raw silver to see if I could potentially pop a gem or something like that. That would be what I would work for. And I do like the addition of Chris Paul, and he's going to be able to play yet another season under Pop. And I think we do see a big jump this year for Wembanyama. Even though he did win Rookie of the Year, he was playing a lot stronger at the tail end of the season than he did at the beginning. And I see he could probably do that again. So it's not a terrible look for sure.
And then the other one, it's not any of our expertise, but Connor Bedard.
Connor Bedard, yeah, he's definitely a generational talent, and he's scoring a ton of goals. So, yeah, I could see myself moving into a Connor Bedard. Personally, I would rather have Connor McDavid right now just because he's so much closer to being solidified as an absolute stud. I mean, he's already a stud, but giving him winning, he was one game away from a Stanley Cup, so could Connor McDavid end up getting that cup? Would he get it before Bedard? I do believe so, because the Oilers are much better than the Blackhawks, and so I don't know if I want to move into Bedard right now, but you could convince me for sure, especially if, let's see what his Connor Bedard Young Guns maybe.
I just feel like there's a lot of upside because he hasn't been talked about since the regular season ended.
Oh yeah,
and with him scoring a crap ton of goals again at the beginning of the year, I feel like. Of course, I don't have the capital I don't have a lot of breathing room to hold a $500+ card.
Yeah.
Unless I like trade it up and stuff, but
yeah, the Connor Bedard Young Guns raw right now is going for $319, but 90 days ago it was going for $400. So I could see that going back up in the last 180 days. Let's see what's today. July 21st. Let's go to 365 days of this sale. I mean, this card has sold for crazy money. This card sold for $500, 4 months ago, and now
raw?
It's raw. Yeah, and so to get it, like within the last couple of days, there's one that sold for $230. So yeah, I could see this being a really good investment. This chart looks nice. Like I'm going to put it back on the screen here, but it looks like a card that is positioned to go back up towards a rise, but he would also have to be on a team that's really competitive. So the Blackhawks, I believe, if I remember correctly, are a couple pieces away from being really competitive. So
yeah, in which they got a high draft pick. I had no idea who it was, but with them not being great, they got another good draft pick to go along Bedard. Excuse me.
Yeah, this is a card that I wouldn't mind potentially looking at the PSA 9 of. I know that this is a strategy that I rarely talk about and rarely ever look at. But the Young Guns in itself, the last 90 days, it's held a pretty consistent value of a 415, 415 or 423 in April. And the PSA 9 of this, the last three sales are around $350. So maybe we'll keep our eyes open for some Connor Bedard young guns or something around Connor Bedard. Raw, you could totally get into the jumbo version of this card for under $200. So we will have a look. Good thoughts there for sure. Young Guns or Connor Bedard coming back into a season. The NHL season is so long. I think that's another thing I never realized is like they're actually not very far from starting back up as well, and they just ended. And it's very similar to basketball in the way that it resides that way. So, all right, my man. Is there anything else? Last things you have to say about the National, and anything you're looking forward to? Any other questions you have?
No, I'm excited to just be with everybody. See everybody's face, like actually in person. Of course, I've seen everybody through a screen except for you. So excited to network and just just get to see everyone in person and just chat it up about cards and just get to know everyone better.
Sweet, man. Well, networks are half of what the National is, over half probably. So definitely going to spend some good time together over the next couple of days and look forward to those car rides to and from Cleveland with you. So I'll talk to you soon, Turner.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys, for being on the show, and we're going to hit the outro, and I'll see you soon.
Lefty, great work on today's show. Thanks for supporting Lefty Cards, part of the nooffseason.com sports card network. Get a free 30-day trial today at nooffseason.com to check out our formula-based sports card rankings to help you make money flipping sports cards. Subscribe to Lefty Cards on YouTube and follow us on socials by visiting leftycards.com.